Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. I got up and crossed the grass to get to the small river at the end of the yard. This was my favorite place to think, and the sound of the water calmed me down. I sat down on a tree stump and looked down at the water. I could see tiny fish swimming and plants moving with the wind. Over on the other side, there were 2 mallard ducks looking for food in the water. Even though it was fall, the sun was still pretty warm. I found it odd that the male ducks were the most beautiful and the females were a dull color. When I looked at the clothes I was wearing, I laughed to myself because it was funny that men wore boring clothes while women could look nice. Anyway, I still hadn't figured out how to get into my house. I walked along the water until I reached the old dock. In the past, many years ago, the owners kept their small boats there. Even though it was made of bricks, it wasn't being used and the roof and walls were in bad shape. I opened the old door, made of wood. Even though the hinges were stuck, I was able to push the door open just enough to fit through the hole. There was a hole in the roof, so I could see pretty well inside. The boathouse was pretty big. In the middle, there was a channel from the river and the side jetty parts were wide enough to walk on. There was a big space at the end of the shed where things were kept. There was an old sailboat made of wood that had seen better days and was starting to rot. Spread out all over the area were old tools, wooden boxes, pieces of boats, and tarps. Dust got into my lungs and made me cough a little. It was very dusty. I had to be careful not to dirty my outfit. I wasn't excited about the idea of having to stay here all night, so I was looking around when I moved an old rubber sheet that was probably used to cover boats. There was a tunnel below. As I looked at the door, with its rusty hinges and ring pull, I thought to myself, this is strange. I pulled on the ring pull because I was interested, but nothing happened. It didn't move at all. I looked all over for something that could help me open the door. I found a spade in a corner. I pushed the end into the trapdoor's small hole and pushed down as hard as I could. I could feel the door giving a little, so I worked even harder. With a loud crack, the door suddenly gave way and opened just enough for me to get my fingers under it. The door finally gave way after what seemed like a long time of pulling. It was fully open. When I looked through the crack, I saw that there were 10 steps going down into the darkness. I was interested in whether it led to a cellar or something. I really didn't want to go down there. It seemed dark and not very welcoming. My mom and dad took me to the beach in Cornwall when I was young. I made a big hole in the sand. I was really proud of how long it took. The hole was a good place for me to hide from my parents. The sand was dry and very fine, which was a shame. The walls came down on top of me and buried me. I was scared to death. I could feel sand in my ears and up my nose. The sand was so heavy that I couldn't breathe, and it felt like it was crushing me. Thank goodness my dad pulled me out a few seconds later. It felt like ages. He was lucky that he had been watching me and saw everything that happened. That event made me afraid of small, enclosed places ever since. You can guess how I felt about going down those stairs. Furthermore, I didn't like mice and was scared of rats, which added to my growing list of fears. I thought this looked like the kind of place mice and rats might hang out. It looked like I didn't have a choice, though. So I hesitantly went down the steps and made a noise to scare away any possible mice. At this point, my mind was running with ideas of being attacked by rats. As I took each timid step, my breath got shorter. I was shaking like I had a fever, and I could feel sweat running down my back. I know I was about to freak out, but I kept going. I got to the bottom with a racing heart. There wasn't much light down there. The only source was the shed behind me. I could just make out a small path in front of me in the dim light. After a few minutes of listening, I could no longer hear rats running. All I could hear was the heavy beat of my heart. I was able to breathe a little better in the end. I felt better now that I could see thin lines of light coming from the hall's roof. I chose to be brave and carefully walk down the tunnel because I thought it might lead somewhere. The floor was mostly level, but there were some dirt and broken things on it. The light wasn't great, so I moved more slowly. My eyes were used to the dark, though. As I walked by one of the light strips, I noticed a metal grill above my head. Through the small hole, I could just barely make out the sky and what looked like trees. I kept going, all brave. Not. It was after going by about 6 grills that I stopped. I was interested in how far the tube went because it looked very long. At that moment, I thought I heard a soft plopping sound coming from behind me. Holding my breath, I turned around and tried to see through the darkness. There was nothing to see or hear. Get a handle on things, Katie, I told myself this and kept going as quickly as I could. I finally reached the end of the tube. The way up had steps, but there wasn't much light. I didn't know what was ahead of me as I walked up the steps. My crazy thoughts made me wonder if I was going to fall and die or something. After going up about 30 steps, my hand hit the wall in front of me. That was the bottom of the stairs. I couldn't go any further. Then I used my hands to feel everything around me. There was only a wall on the right, but I could feel wood on the left. It might have been a door, but no matter how hard I pushed, it wouldn't open. After that, I heard a sound. I would think about that sound for days afterward. It was the sound of things running. I screamed when something touched my skirt and went over my shoe. I screamed again, but this time it was so loud that it was hard to hear. I had to leave that place. The fear for my life made me cry. I felt something fuzzy brush up against my bare legs again, and my heart was racing. I must have found some strength because I could have pushed 10 times as hard into the wood. I heard a squeaking sound and then saw a gap in the darkness. It took even more force, but the door finally opened just enough for me to get through. As I fell into the bright room, a gray, fuzzy thing snuck in through the crack I had made. The sudden light made it impossible for me to see clearly. I closed my eyes to block out the light and ran. I tripped over something and fell hard. I could hear footsteps behind me and feel fur on my bare leg. I screamed so loudly, the rat was after me. I was going to die from being eaten. I curled up in a ball and put my dirty hands over my eyes. I felt the rat land on my shaking body. I could take it no longer, and the sound of my own screams hitting my ears made me pass out from shock. I woke up out of nowhere. I was rolled up in a ball and shaking a little. At first, I couldn't remember where I was, but then I did. As soon as I got off the ground, I ran into the corner and he looked all over for the rat. There was some junk in the room, but there was no sign of the rat. When I rubbed my leg, I felt a pain. When I looked at the spot where I had touched, I saw bite marks and blood on my hand. When I realized I had been bitten, I almost passed out. I sat down on the floor out of the blue. The thought of the gross rat biting me made my heart beat fast. I finally cooled down and looked around me after a while. This room looked like one of the small, empty waiting rooms on the ground floor, which I knew. The hall door was just a little open. The room was about 15 feet square, had a low ceiling, and needed new furniture and decorations. We hadn't used it yet because of this, which is why the room didn't have any furniture in it. From the other side of the room, I could see where I had come in. The door looked like a cabinet from this side. Like the fireplace in my room, it was clear that it was another secret door. I stood up and shut the door. I didn't want any more rats to bite me. Since my leg was still hurting, I went to the bathroom upstairs and cleaned the wound up as best I could. I found some antiseptic cream and slightly flinched as I put it on the cuts. So it would stay clean, I put a bandage on it. I kept my ears open for sounds of things moving around while I did this. Since one had actually bit me, I was 10 times more afraid of rats. When I looked down, I saw that my uniform was dirty from where I had fallen in the hallway and hit the floor. I chose to wash my top and skirt and put on something else. I went to my room and found my closet. I chose the short skirt I had just bought and the hoodie that said, "I'm a good girl, not." I also got a clean white bra and underwear and set them on a chair. I took a shower in the bathroom with some nice, bubbly shower gel that made my face feel smooth. The patch on my leg didn't come off because it was waterproof. I used my mom's shampoo to wash my hair, and then I used conditioner to make it smooth and soft. I dried off quickly. Taking a shower made me feel better, and my face looked great. First, I used a towel to dry my hair a bit. Then I went into my parents' room and used the hair dryer, brushing my hair as it dried. It took a while, but when I was done, it looked soft, full, and pretty. Having goosebumps made me run back to my room and quickly get changed. My hair was a little tangled when I put on my jacket, so I brushed it again. I was amazed at how much I had changed since yesterday when I looked at myself in the mirror. I'd changed from having the looks of a boy, but the feelings of a girl, which had caused me a lot of pain and anger, to actually being a girl. It's true that I had parts that most girls don't have, but I would fix that one day. I heard a noise all of a sudden. The sound was scratching and the sound of feet walking. I was very brave and did what I thought was best. I screamed, jumped on my bed, and hid under the covers. Again, I was shaking with fear. My heart was beating fast, and I broke out in a cold sweat. Putting my breath out let me hear what was going on. I could still hear little feet running around. The bed got hit by something. In the dark, I couldn't see anything, but I could feel something moving up the bed sheets toward me. I jumped out of bed like I was being shot and ran to the door. When I turned around, the rat was on the bed. It was at least 9 inches long and a dirty gray color. Its eyes were fixed on me and wouldn't blink. It looked bad. I could see its awful, sharp teeth, the ones that had bit me. In a corner, I had an old tennis stick propped up. I reluctantly and very, very reluctantly picked it up and went over to the bed. The rat still hadn't moved. It could be that it was just as scared of me as I was of it. I raised the bat and was about to hit the rat with it when I felt my bedclothes move. Something else was in my bed! Yet another rat! I slammed the door shut as I ran out of the room. I was so scared I almost felt like I was going to pass out. I got a glass of water downstairs and drank it. I finally settled down after what seemed like a long time. I had no idea what to do. Rats were living in the house. Rats in the house are too much for me to handle. I began to cry. It was all too much for me. I had been through hell and back before this. I sat down in the living room with my glass in my hand and slowly rocked back and forth while drinking water. Then I felt different. I began to feel angry for some reason. Why did you make me go through this? The only 2 people who meant anything to me were gone. I had to get by on my own. It was bad enough that I was having trouble at the store and school, and now rats were making me leave my own house. I was not going to give in to this. After what I went through, it should be easy to get rid of rats. I carefully opened the door, went upstairs, and picked up the tennis stick that I had dropped in the hall. My heart was in my throat again, but this time anger got me through the door. To scare the rats, I screamed very loudly. The same rat was still lying on the bed and staring at me with its sharp eyes. When I raised the racket to hit it, I saw that it wasn't moving. I saw that it was dead. I caught a glimpse of the bed covers moving from the corner of my eye. When I saw that the other rat was still living and under the bed, I let out a gasp. I knew I had to win this one, so I raised the racket and I heard something from under the bed cover. It was a purr, not a squeak. Lifting the edge of the bed cover, I took a close look under it. It had big green eyes, a white face, and a little tongue that licked its hands. A cat looked at me. The animal let out a loud purr, stretched, got out from under the covers, and jumped off the bed. I fell on the bed and sat down far away from the dead rat. The cat jumped right up on my lap. "Hello, honey. Where are you from?" The cat looked very girly, so I think it was a she. She was pretty small, like an old cat or a young adult, if you get what I mean. You could see spots of tortoiseshell on her back and 3 of her paws. She was mostly white. She began to lick my hand, which felt good. She didn't have a collar around her neck, and I could feel her ribs through her fur as I petted her. She looked very hungry and was very thin. She purred even louder when I picked her up. "Are you full?" I took her downstairs and said, "Let me see if I can find you some milk." She didn't mind being carried at all, and we were in the kitchen in no time, where I watched her drink a whole saucer of milk. As I watched her drink, I knew what had to have happened after giving her another drop of milk. I came in through the secret tunnel, and that rat followed me in. I think the cat that was following it caught and killed it. After putting the rat on the bed, she must have gone into my room and curled up under the covers. How did she understand that it was my bed? Was it a chance event? What do you know? Based on how she looks, she must be a stray, kind of like me. That's why I'm calling you Honey. You look so sweet. She must have agreed because she brushed herself against my legs. I got a trash bag and a trowel from the yard and went upstairs. I picked up the dead rat from the bed and put it in the trash bag. I was glad that was over. Honey was always following me around like a little ghost, which I loved because I wasn't alone at home anymore. The laundry washed and dried after I took my dirty clothes and blankets from my room. I hoped the clothes wouldn't fade, but just in case, I set the washer to warm. Because of what had happened, I told Honey a lot about it while I drank my tea. I really hoped she would stay and be with me. She probably had no idea what I was talking about, but she would sometimes look at me like I was crazy and meow to join in. All right, Honey, that's my story. I wish we could talk too. I'd love to know what happened to you. I washed my plate and glass. I left Honey's milk in her saucer so she could drink it whenever she wanted. I need to get her cat food and litter soon, maybe tomorrow. After the big events of the day, I was pretty tired, so I chose to go to bed early. I made up my mind to iron my clothes tomorrow. Honey helped me check all the doors and windows, and they were all fine. I thought Honey might need to go to the bathroom, so I got an old, large baking tin and some earth from an old plant pot. I spread the earth out in the bottom of the tray and put Honey in it. She knew just what to do, which made her very smart. I quickly took my clothes, and soon I was in bed with Honey curled up next to me and purring happily. I yawned and thought about what could happen to me tomorrow. I had to get to the store again. I had to figure out how to get in and out of the house without setting off the alarm. I might have to use the tunnel again, which I didn't really want to do. Right then, my cell phone rang. Who might it be? When I looked at the number on the phone next to my bed, I didn't really know it. I nervously pressed the button and asked, "Is that Katie?" "Yes," a woman's voice said. "Hello, Katie. This is Nicola's mom calling." "Oh, hello. Sorry to call you now, but Nicola gave me your number. May I talk to your mom or dad?" I couldn't think of anything to say the whole time we were talking, so I just said the first thing that came to mind. "They're going out for the night? Leaving you all by yourself?" "No, the babysitter is here," I said. "May I talk to her?" My mouth was open. My heart was in my mouth, and then she continued, "No, she wouldn't know. Look, what I'm ringing about is that my daughter has asked if you could come and stay with us for the weekend, and I wanted your parents' permission to ask you, would you like to come?" Without thinking about the consequences, I let my mouth run away with me again. "Yes, please, if my parents let me. My parents are away this weekend, so it's good that I can come over. They were going to take me to their boring meetings if they couldn't find another way to get me to go with them." She laughed. I said, "But can I bring my kitten?" "What is it, kitten?" "Yes, she is very sweet. So her name is Honey." She laughed again and said, "Okay, we have 2 cats and 3 dogs. All of them are really nice. It doesn't matter if you add 1 more. It's fine with me to call you in the morning to make plans as long as your parents don't mind." "Yes, of course, no problem. Thank you for having me," she said. "Good night, Katie." "Night, Mrs. Bright," I said. I heard a click and the line went dead. I got up and went to the bathroom. These days, I went a lot. I told myself I had to stop drinking Coke. As I got back into bed, Honey woke up a little. She leaned against me and looked sleepy, then went back to sleep. While I touched her, I thought about what I had just said to Nicola's mom. I did it once more. I wish my mouth would say things when I don't mean them to. There are many reasons why I might not want to stay with Nicola. Strangers might ask me questions. I hate telling lies. My mom and dad taught me to tell the truth. Lying is bad because it's like digging into a big black hole. You end up falling in. I began to cry. Being sensitive these days, it didn't take much to make me think about them and the mess I had made of things. I thought this was too much for me to handle. After that, I started to think about Nicola. I liked her, and having her as a friend was great. She helped me out at school and kept my secret. It was nice to meet Nicola's mom. She was funny and nice to me, which I liked. When I yawned, I knew I was really tired. I quickly forgot that I had promised not to drink Coke because I was thirsty. I opened the one that was on my nightstand and drank it. After that, I turned off the light and went to sleep. I felt like I woke up in what seemed like seconds. It was the morning of Saturday. As the sun came in through the window, Honey played with her tail on the bed. "Good morning, Honey," I said. She looked at me and meowed back. I got up and went to the window. It was another nice day, but I could feel it getting cold because my thin nightgown was making me shiver. I need to quickly check if I can get the heat to work. My heart skipped a beat when I thought about what I had said to Nicola's mom the night before. Thanks for watching. Check out Patreon if you want to have early access to the other parts. If not, it will be online in a couple of days.